Hello everyone, welcome to Lockdown Siswell. Today we talk about Robert Lee and well-known general in South of U.S. Civil War. Robert Lee was very popular in America. Even he was finally defeated and surrendered to the Union. On April 9th, 1865, at the courthouse by Appomattox River, Robert Lee met with Grant, Commander-in-Chief of the North, negotiating for the conditions of surrender. Lee was in his general uniform with his sword by his side, behaved in dignity and honor. In contrast, the triumphant Grant looked somewhat nervous and uneasy. Later in 1869, when Grant had been U.S. president, he invited Robert Lee to the White House as a symbol of reconciliation after the Civil War. In January 1807, Robert Lee was born in a family of a military tradition in Virginia. His father was Henry Lee, a famous general in American Independence War, deeply interested by General Washington, and had been elected as a Virginia governor. After the war, Henry Lee failed in real estate investment, involved in debts, and was put in jail twice. In 1812, when Robert Lee was 6 years old, and his father, Henry Lee, squandered all the money and abandoned the family, fled to West Indies in a lonely life. Robert Lee had never seen his father since then. Robert Lee's mother was Annie, very kind and graceful, tried her best to maintain the family, and she often quoted the words of Washington to teach his son, such as, "Self-comment is a pivot upon which the character, fame, and independence of us mortals hang. Fame in arms or art, however conspicuous, is naught unless bottomed on virtue." The example of his mother benefited Robert Lee greatly. Not only he saved the family's fame with his success, but also he became the model for so many people due to his integrity and behavior. Due to the poverty of the family, Robert Lee helped with housework since young and took care of his sick mother until he enrolled in West Point at the age of 18. During school, he achieved excellency in academic and graduated second in a class of 45 in 1829 without any record of misdemeanors. He was also thrifty and saved money for the family, and never had the bad habit of borrowing money and in debt. In 1831, when he was 24, Robert Lee married with Mary Custis, the granddaughter of Massa, the first lady of the George Washington. They inherited several plantations, and one of them was in Washington, D.C., and later was confiscated as part of Arlington Cemetery in the Civil War. After graduation, Robert Lee served in engineering corps and helped in building fortifications in Georgia for 7 months. And then he was promoted as a staff in headquarters of an engineering department. He participated in exploration and making the border lines between Ohio and Michigan states, and in the constructions of the docks and forts in St. Louis and along Mississippi River. His good performance had earned him good fame and promotion. During the war on Mexico from 1846 to 1848, Robert Lee was brevetted for 3 times due to his gallantry and contributions. He became a lieutenant colonel. In 1852, he worked as the superintendent of West Point, enlarged the school, and updated the teaching staff. Later, he transferred to a station in Texas for border protection and joined the war against the Indian tribe of Comanche. In 1859, he suppressed John Brown uprisings against slavery. Before American Civil War, he had been regarded as one of the best generals in the army and was highly recommended by General Winfield Scott, the U.S. Army Staff-in-Chief. President Lincoln appointed him as the Commander-in-Chief of the Union Army, which had been his lifelong dream and pursuit as a soldier. Yet American Civil War broke out in 1861. Virginia seceded from the Union and joined in the Confederate. Robert Lee was reluctant to the South slavery and secession. Anyhow, he was faithful to his native state of Virginia and had to serve for his own hometown and fellow countrymen. He resigned his post in the Union and was assigned as a Major General for North Virginia Corps. Initially, he didn't perform so well at the battlefield, even was defeated for several times. He was sent south to supervise the construction of fortification, and then as the military advisor for Jefferson Davis, president of the Confederate. Since 1862, he invaded the North and won victories, enforced the Union to defend and Washington, D.C. and Ontario. 6 commanders of the North had been replaced due to incompetence, and President Lincoln in Great War. In September 1862, Robert Lee attacked into North to Antietam with an army of 45,000 and approached to Washington. George McClellan, a North commander, fought against Lee with 87,000 troops and resulted in a standoff. In December 1862, Robert Lee led an army of 78,000 to resist against the Union Army of 123,000 at Fredericksburg, Virginia, resulting in North's defeat, retreat, and great loss. With Ambrose Burnside, the newly appointed Union commander, relieved of his post. In April 1863, Robert Lee continued to the north with his 60,000 troops and engaged wars with the Union Army of 130,000 at Chancellorsville, Virginia, with the North defeated and withdrew. As commander, Major General Joseph Hooker resigned. In July 1863, Robert Lee maneuvered forward to the north, hoping to besiege and take over Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, threaten Washington, D.C., and win the final victory. After the fierce battles and mature counties, Robert Lee was forced back to Virginia in November 1863. President Lincoln made his well-known Gettysburg address. In May 1864, Union Commander Grant waged attacks to Cold Harbor, 10 miles north of Richmond, the South capital. Robert Lee engaged defense for 2 weeks with North counties of 20,000 and failed to capture. Yet Richmond had been surrounded until it was taken over by the North until April 2nd, 1865. Then Robert Lee and his 30,000 troops were under attacks and encirclement from Grant. And the Confederate government asked Lee to scatter into the mountains and engage guerrilla war. Yet, as the commander-in-chief of the South, Lee believed the doom of the secessionists, and then the country should avoid the further endless bloodshed. So he refused the instructions and surrendered to the Union Army. At the same time, he called for all the rest armies in the South to give up resistance and finish the Civil War. After the war, he was exempted from a war prosecution and supported the plan for South reconstruction and national reconciliation. He was also appointed as a superintendent of the Washington University. Under his overseeing, the school grew rapidly and became one of the best U.S. colleges. Yet the racial discrimination were still rampant at the time. During the 170 years from 1795 to 1966, there was almost no African American student admitted to this school. In October 1870, Robert Lee died of sickness. And because of his popularity nationwide, many of his statues and monuments were erected mainly in the South, even at U.S. Congress. Especially his equestrian statue built in Richmond in 1890, which with the weight of 12 tons, statue height 6.4 meters on the base of 12 meters, which became a point of controversy in America after a century of his passing away. Robert Lee himself disagreed with slavery and also set free his slaves from the plantation. In his letter to his wife, he showed his opposition to slavery and called it the evil of morality and politics. He suggested black slaves join the Southern Army and get free. Yet recently, Robert Lee had been iconized as the symbol of racialism and discrimination. In 2015, his last statue in New Orleans was removed. In 2016, a school of Robert Lee High School in Houston, Texas was renamed. 2017, a clash and riot broke out in Richmond for the argument of his statue removal or not. In 2020, a U.S. Capitol removed his statue. In May 2020, in Minnesota, George Floyd, an African-American, died due to police over-enforcement. And massive parades and riots occur nationwide for racial equality and human rights. Then followed more voices of removing Robert Lee's statues and monuments. And many cities and states choose to do so under pressure and even avoid mentioning his name anymore. Another kind of American cultural revolution to clean up history. In a society that open, civilized, and tolerant, the history should be reviewed more comprehensively and justly. Although bygones have been bygones, yet Robert Lee is still today's popular topic. Here comes the end of today's program, and thanks for your watching, and see you next time. Thank you, bye.